All right, everybody, thank you all for getting on early. Appreciate everybody jumping in. I've been hearing from our producers that y'all are already live in the chat asking what qualifies for someone to get a bottle. Y'all being here today and spending time with us, being active in the chat, just talking with us is going to make you qualified for that bottle of the Barrel Select from Milam and Greene out of Blanco, Texas. Third round of this. For those of y'all who've been with us a bit, y'all joined us at Ranger Creek. Y'all done this with us at Still Austin. So by now you know the game. I'm going to talk a little about some cybersecurity initiatives. We're going to pivot to talk to Marlene. Marlene Holmes is the Master Distiller of the Year this year. She works here at Milam and Greene, and she's going to talk about what makes this place unique. So as we get there, if you have questions, you can always chime in on the chat. We have a number of our folks from marketing that are manning that. Haley Daigle's with us today. Emily, on her birthday, is sharing in that chat. If you haven't yet wished Emily a happy birthday, please do so. Emily, how old are you? 29. 29, guys. One more good year for her, and then it's all downhill. Also on the chat will be Jesselyn Schulman. So if y'all need anything at all, if you're having any technical difficulties, perhaps the video stops, you can't hear me well, let us know there, and we will make sure it's fixed. For those who haven't met me yet, I'm James Shuler. I'm a Center Technologies employee, and I get to do these fun things like talking about steaks, barbecue, and my favorite, the whiskey event we do end of every year, where we buy a barrel of whiskey, have it bottled, and get it out to you for joining us. So today, I want to talk just a minute about Center, and I'm going to pivot over to a guest we have with us. We're going to get into cybersecurity. Now, like I mentioned, we're going to get Marlene up here to talk about what we all want to discuss, and that's the bourbon that comes out of Milam and Greene Distillery. So with that, all of y'all who've known the events we do and the fun we have know that we do this because tech awareness is extremely important to us. We know that your day-to-day jobs got you way too busy to pick your head up out of the weeds and look at what's new. So instead of joining trade shows or looking at booths or scouring Google, we try to hold events like this to let you know what's important inside of our walls, because if it's important to us, likewise, it's probably important to your team as well. So today, I want to mention real quick that cloud security might be the biggest topic we're hearing inside of our walls. We're going to hear a little bit about that from Jim Johnson at Arctic Wolf in a bit. But really, it comes down to securing infrastructure the same way we always have. So making sure you have similar tools in place. For whatever reason, especially the new guys in IT, think it means something completely different. But closing vulnerabilities, making things aren't configured incorrectly, things of that nature are the types of tech that we want to surround our IT professionals with to ensure that we make sure our cloud environments are secure. With that, we need a team, if you don't have one already, that knows how to look at those types of logs, those incidents and alerts, and be able to dig through them for the critical alerts that matter. With that, we have partnerships and a knock ourselves that winds up staring into those boring logs to make sure that we can keep you safe and protected. So if you want more on that, one of our account executives is guaranteed going to be in touch to make sure you get your bottle. As that happens next week, if you have questions on how to make sure you're in a good shape, we will make sure that you're getting that information from them. The second most important thing I hear often, there's more blended environments than there ever have been. Groups that are, say, in history never been Mac or haven't had the need for Google Docs. And that's starting to change. The newer employees coming in are bringing their own devices. They have a preference of different tech. And that introduces different types of vulnerabilities, patching, and management. In the event that's happening, we have tools that are agnostic across the entire landscape. I can make sure that all those are protected. And the last one is, now that I've moved to SaaS, it's not infrastructure as a service, but it's actually an application living out there. Well, same thing. We have to think of it the same way. It could go down at any time. It was in July that CrowdStrike brought us all down. CrowdStrike's a great product. It's a wonderful security tool, and it brought us down even though we were using it correctly. Well, how do we make plans for that? Well, the incident response planning that you can get with Center takes you through end-to-end tabletop exercises with executives, all the way down to the documentation or run book of who's going to communicate with who along the way. All that and more things we enjoy talking to our partners at Arctic Wolf about. And so I'm going to bring Jim Johnson on, and we're going to get into a little bit what we heard at the beginning of this year on what the hot topics would be, but actually how the year played out. Jim Johnson's been with us before. Jim, you've enjoyed a couple of these events with us.
This is number 3.
Number
if you keep
3?
inviting me, I'm going to have to get different vests.
I'm not on board with 3. I thought this was the second, but he's right. We got to drink less bourbon on these events. I forgot the third
Probably
one.
less before we start would be a great idea.
So, Jim, thanks for being here again.
Yeah.
Long drive for you. Did you?
It's about 45 minutes or
45 minutes. So this is your backyard in Blanco.
Yeah, I love it here, man. It's beautiful. I'm way up in North Austin, which is basically South Dallas, but I love the drive. It's a beautiful drive. This is a fantastic facility.
Do you have a distillery in the North Austin area that you frequent?
Yeah, it's in my garage.
Are you really making it at home?
No.
I don't know if that's fully allowed. Yeah. So, are there North Austin distilleries?
I think most of them are a lot towards the south down here.
Yeah, well, we need more.
I agree.
All right, so let's get into it. Beginning of this year, we heard that ransomware attacks were going to die down. Business email compromise was going to kind of take over.
Sure.
We did see a pretty big increase in BEC. What did y'all see? Did those predictions from all the conferences late last year come to fruition?
We saw the same thing. I mean, there's a difference between ransomware and BEC, but BEC can also be a conduit into a ransomware event. The other thing is it kind of ebbs and flows, the different types of attacks, and especially now as we go into the holiday season, I think we're going to see more business email compromise and more phishing attacks as people get phishing emails like, hey, get your free turkey, or we're having a holiday party, come and log into it. So we just see more phishing events towards the end of the year, which leads to business email compromise.
You know, the free turkey one's what gets me every time. That's happened more than once this year alone.
You need good training.
Yeah. So let's get into the BEC side. Ransomware, past 2 years, we've done these whiskey events. We've talked about ransomware quite a bit. Everyone's got something in place to try to help prevent or notify them.
Sure.
We just did an event over some hot wings where we decided to kill me or attempt to kill me, eating hotter and hotter hot sauces. We said then that having solid backups segregated from the environment with
Absolutely.
immutable protection is, even for Arctic Wolf, the number one thing you need to put in place on any security front. Do you agree with that?
So I think it's both important to have the immutable backups and things that you can recover from, but it's, in my opinion, we need to try and stop the events before they happen,
Okay.
right? So think about it, somebody breaking into your house. Do you want to stop them at the front gate?
Yes.
Or do you want to stop them when they're in your bedroom closet trying to crack the safe, right? So we want to stop them in every part of the kill chain. Earlier that we can, the better.
All right, yeah, you're right. I don't want them in my closet. But
I don't want to be in your closet.
well, don't break in. So then, if that's the case, then let's go into, I know how to detect now that some intruder's in. I've got good technology around it. So what do I do in business email compromise? How do I know that someone's creating rules? What are the detection moments there?
So what we look at when we're looking for business email compromise, I mean, we're looking for all of it, but the big things we look for are some account trying to elevate their privileges, or whether they're trying to add themselves to different security groups or add auto forward or auto delete rules. And a lot of that is key to make sure that we're hooked into AD or Entra, whatever their directory storage is, so we can see those actions to see if they're trying to modify their permissions.
Okay, so let's play that out. Give me a good example. What's the creation of an admin?
Yeah, so let's say I have your credentials, right? I successfully phished you. Now I have your credentials. I'm going to log into AD. I'm going to then create auto forward rules from all of your inbox to my inbox, and then I'm going to create auto delete rules on those sent emails. So even if you go to your sent inbox, you're not going to see them. Then I'm going to create, after the auto forward rules, I start to watch all the emails coming in. And I notice that you talk to the finance person. Mm-hmm. So then I'm going to auto forward all those emails that you send to that person and auto delete the sent rules, or excuse me, the sent emails. So now I'm getting all of them, and then I'm going to act as you, and I'm going to send emails to the finance department and say, hey, we're working on a new accounting system, so the next time that you need to send a wire, send it to this account. And by the way, that account is owned by me. So I'm acting as you. They have no idea that I'm you. You have no idea this is going on. So that's really the mechanics on a basic level of how BEC happens.
It used to be the training for these types of things on a phishing attack was I changed the letters, like center, CNT, REs, now ER. They got the domain name. Now they're actually you.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. As long as I have control of your account because I successfully phished you, it's no problem. I already have your stuff, so I can create rules on your inbox to send all your stuff to me.
Yeah, my favorite horror story, we go through a pretty extensive onboarding process when we have a new managed services customer come on board. Many of y'all today who are listening probably went through that assessment period. One of our guys who does that work, his name's Peter. Peter was actually able to uncover those types of rules being put in place just as he was documenting the environment. Brought it up, hey, y'all seen anything fishy? Because this looks like you're hacked. They said, nope, you're wrong. I mean, sure enough, he was right. There was an issue there, and they were unable to recover from that fast enough before things ended up being transferred. So that did occur. Now, we were told those were going to escalate. They did increase in numbers. We saw a bunch of those. About September, let's go July, we saw a dramatic increase in ransomware attacks. I didn't see that coming since the first half of the year seemed to be the predictions were becoming true.
Sure.
That massive increase seems to have been AI generated or AI backed?
So, I mean, there's a couple factors there. I think when you look at Conti, R-Evil, and a couple of those major groups getting taken down, then those people start to splinter off into their own. And it takes them a little bit to get organized, and then now they're starting to launch their attacks. However, what you were talking about with AI, as AI continues to improve, it makes it a lot easier to not only create the malware, but to write those emails, those phishing emails, so it doesn't look like it's coming from a Nigerian prince with misspelled words and bad grammar. It's all dialed in, and it's really well-written emails now. And then you back that up with AI creating deepfake, either phone calls or even voice calls. Where somebody gets a phishing email, they say, oh, this looks a little weird, but then they get a deepfake phone call from that person that sounds like that person, and they think that it's now validated, so they're like, oh yeah, I'm validated, I can send this wire, or I can do whatever the bad guys or the threat actors are asking me to do.
Yeah, that's good. The AI's gotten to the point too where those emails that they're creating, they could even say in there, make me sound human, like give me some grammatical mistakes. Don't make it perfect.
Yeah, miss a comma here or whatever.
Yeah, right. So interesting that they're pulling that off that way. The increase, the new versions, I guess, or the emergence of new ransomware has led to new tactics as well. I think we saw mimics of MFA login screens, or mimicking. They were stealing tokens from MFA. They were doing VPN screens that made you think, hey, this is me connecting my VPN. In reality, you're going straight to them.
Yeah, you can lay on overlay, excuse me, of HTML that looks just like the appropriate login website, and you're like, oh yeah, this looks just like Center's or Arctic Wolf's or Company X's login site. No problem. I'm going to put in my credentials because it all looks right.
So let's if we have new versions that are popping up to be trickier than ever. It's not that it's a fake, it's that it's actually real, it's exact, it's actually somebody in someone else's environment. That means we can't rely on people at all. It's gonna have to be AI against AI to figure out how to pull that off.
Yeah, I mean, it's AI on AI, but at the same time, so everybody should be using AI if you have the capabilities and the expertise to do it. At Arctic Wolf, we have a team of over 80 people in our labs organization and in our AI group that focus strictly on AI. Initially, it was just on making sure we can correlate data better. making sure we get data to the analysts faster, because you still need to keep, one of our philosophical beliefs is that you still need a human in the loop, HITL, to make sure that because when AI goes bad, it goes really bad, right? So we have to make sure we keep a human in the loop to make sure that there's checks and balances, so when we're using AI, it gets used appropriately.
Yeah, so that's strong. The group that we're kind of hinting about, that's new to the scene, just made the newspapers a couple months ago.
$75 million.
$75 million. Now, I've got $75. I don't have 75 mil to throw away. So, did y'all see that? Jim, with his nice proper suit, said, "I'm the rich man." I like that.
Absolutely. That's because I spent all my money on suits.
So that group, their name's Dark Angels.
Dark Angels, that is correct.
That group was able to grab 75 million, and they encrypted not a single gig. They had the fear that they had encrypted it by stealing a portion of their data and proving it. So without the encryption and needing to not have this be a business impacting event, this company paid it up and said, "We gotta get out of this."
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's pretend that's the world. That's just blackmail.
Absolutely. Well, ransomware is just blackmail. I mean, all of it is just blackmail. But the Dark Angels it's a little bit interesting, because that group is a little bit different from the ones that we've seen in the past. Dark Angels, they have affiliates, but they don't outsource all of their attacks to like the entire group of ransomware actors, like just put it out widely. They focus their attacks, so their attacks are that much more effective. So when they go after an organization, they can put that fear in them that they're going to be affected. Whereas in the past, these groups would just kind of spray and pray, and hopefully they got somebody, and then they had to profit share with their affiliates or with the larger ransomware world as a whole. Dark Angels is focusing and having more poignant attacks.
So the ransomware as a service model opened everything up. It's a giant fishnet. Anybody would do anything.
Absolutely.
Anyone can grab it. And then we always heard there was after you were done being breached, they would sell you off to somebody else. They would then have someone else do the same, and there's some sharing going on.
Sure.
Dark Angels is showing us a different world that's more precise.
Yeah, like I said, they have affiliates, but they're not sharing it with the whole world. They're trying to keep under wraps, right? Back in the day, if you look at the early days of hacking, everybody just wanted to change streetlights and say, "Hey, look at me, I can hack some stuff." And then that morphed into, oh, there's money behind this, because all financial transactions are online now. So it went into that. And it was, hey, look at how much money I stole, or how many companies I attacked. And now I think it's more of this is a business.
Yeah.
We are running, I mean, these people have HR departments. Sure. They have recruiting teams. So it's running more as a business of we're going to stay under the covers and take as much money as we can, because the laws are getting greater and greater to where the threat actors that are on the front page, they're going to be stricken against by DISA and all of our counter ransomware government entities even.
So sidebar for a minute. This is to the chat. I need somebody to keep me honest. What was the name of the original hacker? Like one of the OGs that would he would hack analog phone systems of radio stations. And he won the calls. Caller number 10 gets tickets. He won a house. He won cars, and then he got popped. Does anyone remember his name?
I'm actually disgusted that I can't remember his name.
I'd love it if someone chimed in. It'd be hilarious to see who gets that first.
Kevin Mitnick.
No, it wasn't Mitnick. It was a different one.
Bill Landreth.
It wasn't Bill.
Captain Crunch.
It wasn't Captain Crunch. Guys.
Mitnick would have been my guess. I'd been wrong.
Mitnick. Everyone keeps
No, it's another guy. Skinny, scrawny, blonde-haired guy. Looks more like Snowden. Was it James Shuler? Skinny, scrawny, blonde-haired guy? Thanks, Emily. So
let's move on before this digresses too bad.
John Draper?
No, that's Mad Men.
Don Draper? It wasn't Don.
All right, I give up.
All right, move on.
All right, my bad. I want to know who that is. Figure out who that guy was. So The next piece I want to get into then is that it's still the same industries, all industries that seem to be impacted by this. Post-COVID, we wanted it to believe like it's only critical industries. The 16 named critical industries. Is it everybody?
Oh, it is everybody. Like if you look at the Gartner report from either last year or the year before, they said 59% of organizations had a breach in the previous year. You look at the Forrester report from last year, it's 70% of organizations they predicted will have a cyber incident this year.
Okay.
Like that's way worse than a coin flip. And it absolutely does not matter the industry you're in, the size you're in. You can be a small company, you can be a giant company. It absolutely doesn't matter.
Well, so 2 years ago we did this, and we were talking about how one day MDR, which is advanced in enterprise today, will one day be foundational. I'm finding that the SOC, the MDR world, is foundational.
Yes.
It's tough to want to afford it, but it's foundational. We need somebody analyzing these logs. We got a slide that you provided me about the 10 things that people look for when they're getting a SOC in place. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, so MDR does not equal SOC. A lot of customers come to us and they say, I need an MDR. But in reality, what they're looking for is the outcome of a SOC, right? And the SOC provides several different things, whether that's strategy, guidance, 24/7, 365, alerting and triage, a SIM, vulnerability management, training, and the SOC has part in all of that.
Okay.
But a lot of our customers can't do that alone. So they need partners like Center and Arctic Wolf to deliver those outcomes that a SOC would provide. And at Arctic Wolf, we think of that as a three-legged stool. We'll do a lot of the heavy lifting in a SOC, but if they don't have the resources or the manpower, they would turn to a partner like Center. But there's also parts that the customer needs to take part in to make sure that this whole SOC gets squared away and they get the outcomes and minimize their risk to the best of their abilities.
Yeah, that's the big piece to me. I find we're talking a lot with our customers about is what is it exactly that you want to outsource? In a lot of cases, they're getting into engagements with Center and Arctic Wolf, and they're believing I want to improve my security team. That's great.
Sure.
But Center, without, let's just say, domain access as well, can't get in and make remediation.
Absolutely.
All right, well, maybe they're not outsourcing remediation. Well, then in that case, you don't need Center to remediate.
Yeah, but maybe they need to do vCISO services.
Correct,
Because they need help with that strategy because they don't have somebody that can build that overarching strategy.
What do you want to outsource? We can find a solution for it as long as we understand that. Now, your slide's perfect. Those 10 things. Some of them are mutual responsibility. Is that right? Some of these are going to be...
Absolutely.
Yeah, some are all my responsibility. Some are all your responsibility. But most of those are some mutual responsibility that we're all going to work together to make this company more secure.
Absolutely. I like to, when I tell customers, I say, look, you're a healthcare organization. You've got 40 clinics, across Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas. Would you rather be in the business of saving lives or digging through a haystack looking for that needle?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you outsource that? That just makes sense. Go save lives because nobody's going to trust me to be a surgeon.
I can look through haystacks. I can't save lives.
Absolutely.
Right. All right. So anything else on that slide you want to mention about just that shared responsibility?
I think if anybody wants to have a discussion about that, hit up your Center rep. We'll come in and have a conversation about the SOC partnership or the security operations partnership and be able to discuss that and talk about whose responsibility is what and how we partner together to make sure we minimize your cyber risk.
All right, last topic. And then we're going to pivot over to get Marlene up here and talk about bourbon. I want to hear a minute about when people say, I want to secure my cloud environment. It seems to me that no one actually can clearly articulate exactly what that means. It means everything and nothing all at once. What do you say to people who ask that same, like, how do I protect myself from being hacked in Azure?
So I think the first thing that we need to think about is, yes, there's a cloud, yes, there's on-prem, but it's all the environment. Like, we have to think about that as an extension of our environment. It's all one thing. So we have to make sure we're securing all of it. The problem is the number one most difficult position in IT to secure somebody for is a security person. The second most difficult is a cloud person. Put those together, it's almost impossible to find a very good cloud administrator that also has tactical security experience. So why not get somebody who's great at cloud and can configure everything, but outsource, to your vernacular, the security of that, to make sure we're surrounding that person, to make sure there's no misconfigurations. I go back to this breach all the time. In 2021, Capital One started, they're like, oh, the cloud is cheaper. Let's start storing credit card applications up there. And because their administrator forgot to check private on their S3 bucket, they lost 140,000 credit card applications, something like either 60 or 80,000 social security numbers, and were fined $80 million because somebody forgot to check private on their S3 bucket. So why not look at Cloud Security Posture Management, CSPM, to secure that environment to make sure that your cloud person isn't making the wrong configurations.
All right, so CSPM, I've heard matching that with your managed risk or vulnerability scanning is like the perfect way to make sure those two things kind of at once are happening.
Yeah, so that's an offering by us within managed risk, right? If you have a cloud environment, we can include CSPM and making sure that we're looking for those vulnerabilities and those misconfigurations.
All right, so as we get to the next part of this, I want to thank you for being here. We have a question.
Actually, yeah, let's see if we have any questions.
Guys, I don't want to hear the question. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you unmute me? All right, we got one question from Sydney Kakmar. Why do most doctors' offices still use Windows 7? And I know Anthony Barron chimed in on the chat too. I think Disney still uses them as well.
Yeah.
So what do y'all think?
No, honestly, a lot of the applications that they run are coded for older platforms. So it's really difficult for them to just upgrade their underlying OS.
It sounds so easy.
I know. And those of us that run, I need email, I need a browser, that's easy. But when you need to look at imaging, right, those applications are written for certain OSs. And to get somebody to rewrite that whole process for new operating systems is difficult. And honestly, we just have to do our best to protect them. And we may not be able to secure Windows 7, but we can secure everything around it, hopefully.
Yeah, that's perfect. So yeah, if you need more on that, we would be happy to talk more about that and bring it to you. So that'd be great to talk more about.
Perfect.
Windows 7.
We're finished?
Where did that come from?
Yeah,
we're done. Get out of here.
Can somebody get me a to-go cup? I gotta get out of here. Styrofoam?
Yeah, we don't have styrofoam. Just drink it here.
All right.
Guys, we're going to pivot and talk with Marlene in just a second. As we get Jim out of the way, we're going to see if we can't get him to go. I think a to-go cup. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Appreciate it. Good seeing you. So,
thanks, man.
Guys, we hold a lot of these events. The next one coming up that's going to be similar to this, a giveaway, a webinar. It's not technically on the books just yet. I think there's a screen up right now that's going to start showcasing what our events look like, the type of stuff we do. If you're enjoying what we're starting today and want to do more, our events page is going to get dropped in the chat. We're also going to be putting our blog there. When you follow our blog, a couple cool things happen. One of the neat things that happens is that you're alerted first to the events that we do. So you get a chance to register early and get it on your calendar, make sure you know what's coming. If you don't want to do that, you can just go back to our centertechnologies.com/events page and you can see it there. So feel free to click on those links and make sure you're following that blog to get those updates. So that'd be my request if you want to stay in tune with what we're doing, or check us on social. Marlene Holmes joins me. I'm really excited about this. I'm a little starstruck. Marlene's just hot off the press from winning a major award for Master Distiller of the Year. And I didn't know much about it till she kind of taught me what that meant. I'm hoping she'll talk to us some about the process here at Milam and Greene and the role of being a distiller. Marlene, thanks for being here.
Hi there. Well, thanks for having me.
Now, I don't want us to crack into these too quick, but whenever you're ready, let's start jumping right in.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, perfect. Will you talk about Milam and Greene, this whole operation, and how this kind of came to be?
Yeah, so we've been around now. Milam and Greene, we celebrated our 5th anniversary in September of this year, and but as a distillery, we've been around almost 8 years now. So yeah, very small craft-oriented distillery here in Blanco. We've got a tasting room. We do a lot of different things as opposed to what a lot of distilleries do. We embrace a lot of different things out there. I take the crew and go back to Kentucky a couple of times a year and make whiskey with the guys up in Bardstown. We batch, we blend, we source.
Let's get into that.
Yeah.
Why do you have to go there to do that part?
It
makes this place a bit unique.
It gives Heather Greene is our master blender, and it gives Heather different taste profiles when it comes to blending. So here at home, we've got our pot stills that we operate every day. Up in Kentucky, we've got the big column stills that we operate. It's still the same mash bill, which is a recipe basically, same yeast strains. The only thing different is it's on column stills up there versus pot stills. Okay. So it gives us 2 different taste profiles
you're
that we
hitting
can
me with
blend
a lot
with.
of different things I want to touch on. So
Sure.
let's start with difference between a master distiller and a master blender. Can you talk to us about what that really gets into or what that means?
Yeah, so real easy way to put that is I'm involved with the product up to when it goes in the barrel, and then Heather, being our master blender, takes over at that point from the barrel and the aging standpoint.
Do you know when it comes to picking a taste profile, how many barrels go into like a batch that gets bottled?
Yeah, that can vary, James. That can vary. Like we've got a very small batch product, and we've got the bottle here on the barrel in front of us. That can be anywhere from 70 to 80 barrels.
Okay.
And you can have a small batch even as small as 2 barrels. So it just depends on how many barrels, that you need to dump for that particular product.
What's a large batch? 200?
Yeah,
more?
Large batch would be 200 or even more than that. 300 or 400 barrels could be a batch.
Interesting. So one barrel, maybe just shy of 200 bottles on average.
Right.
So 200 plus or 70, depending on the size, times 200, how many bottles you get?
It just depends on the angel share. How much the angels decide to take out of that barrel. But yeah, you can roughly estimate anywhere from around 180 to 200 barrels.
Sometimes the angels are greedy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're not shy about what they want to take out of that barrel sometimes.
You mentioned that some of this, like this here is behind us is a pot still.
It is a pot still.
Y'all have it's not called a tower still, it's a
column still.
And you have column stills in other places y'all use. What's the difference in distilling when you have those 2 different versions?
Yeah, that's a great question, James.
With a pot
still, it's considered a batch operation.
Okay.
So we go through the fermentation.
Okay.
We create beer. You got to have beer to make alcohol. So we fill this vessel then with beer. And we distill or vapor off the alcohol out of that beer. Now, once that's complete, it takes about 5 hours, 6 hours to do that. Once that's complete, we empty this vessel, we clean it up, and we put our next batch in. So you do 1 batch at a time. Whereas on a column still, they're referred to as continuous column stills.
Got it.
So as long as you're feeding beer to those stills, they'll just keep running.
Really?
They'll run 24/7 for you.
So let me get this straight.
24/7.
You get a whole bunch of Lone Star Light, and you put it in there, and then this comes out.
Right, something along that line.
This sounds like it's pretty easy to be a master distiller. There has to be more to it than that. What's the secret? What makes somebody an average into a master distiller? What do you look for?
That would be time and experience. Yeah, there's a lot of little nuances in making whiskey and making good whiskey.
Sure.
And you just, There's a lot of things that you can't train.
Okay.
You just have to wait for that situation to pop up and arise and deal with it then. So it's time. It's time.
You're from Kentucky.
I am.
And I've read that you've worked at some pretty high-profile distilleries. And what is the big difference, in your opinion, between the Kentucky and Tennessee scene versus what Texas is doing right now? Broader than Milam and Greene even, but what's the big difference? I've heard weather, I've heard other answers. What do you think it is?
Weather would be the big thing, the
Okay.
climate here.
Okay.
You know, I tell people when I talk to groups, you know, Texas has 1.5 seasons.
Right.
Whereas up in Kentucky, Tennessee, Indiana, up in the Northeast, you've got 4 seasons that you run through. And so those seasons and the temperature change and the environment really make a difference in your aging process once, you know, the product goes into the barrel.
So that's a good call. So
Big
as far as a
emphasis.
distiller goes, before the barrel part, you don't really care about weather, do you? It's just comfort when you're in here? Once it's in the barrel and it's aging, then weather plays a part?
It plays a big part, but it
Okay.
also plays a part during your fermentation. During the fermentation process, you know, naturally in the winter months up in Kentucky, Tennessee in particular, you know, you can have 20, 30, 40 degree weather. That will help your fermentation. The grains and what have you convert over into fermentable sugars to make alcohol.
Okay.
Down here, you know, those winter months are just a few days. And so you're dealing with a higher temperature climate down here. So it makes your finished product, you end up with a little bit more of an aggressive, bold type taste profile down here than what you would up in Kentucky.
Will you share with the group, what is your favorite non-Milam and Greene bourbon to drink?
Non-Milam and Greene? Wow.
Do you ever drink non-Milam and Greene
I
bourbons?
do. Yeah, I like to find out what the other folks are doing out
Yeah,
there.
right.
So yeah, I enjoy tasting a lot, but probably I love Maker's Mark.
Okay.
Maker's is a wheated bourbon, so I like that little softer, sweeter taste that the wheated bourbon offers.
Okay.
You know, Knob Creek, that's a Jim Beam
good.
product.
Yeah.
I love Knob Creek. So those would probably be the 2 favorite.
I feel Bulleit's gotten a lot of press lately. Bullet seems to be on every commercial, or
Yeah.
maybe Yellowstone did that for me, but it seems to be getting showcased a
Right.
lot. Haley, would you drop that in there? I'd love to know everybody else's favorite choice on bourbon today. I'm hoping that they'll compare it to what they're going to be getting here. It'd be fun to know the differences. If you get some good people chiming in, let me know. My favorite recently has been High West in
High
Utah.
West, yeah.
Big fan of their
Yeah,
operation. I like
yeah.
what they're doing there.
They do a great job. As a matter of fact, I've tried several of their products. Had one the other day there in Austin. And the Midsummer's Night Dram, I believe, was the name on it, and it's fabulous. Yeah, those guys do a great job up there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Nodding over here, we just bought a couple ourselves, but our cousin in Utah's having to ship it to us by driving it all the way down from Utah. So that's awesome that you were drinking that one. The other one I love is actually in your backyard, and that's Still. We did an event with them last year.
Right.
Now,
Yep.
this year I read Nancy, who's part of their blending operation, she won an award with you.
She did.
Can you talk
Yep.
about what that award process? Did you get to go to a banquet? Did you give a speech?
Yeah, you know, we had a whole weekend. There was 4 days of 400 plus women. And it's a Bourbon Women's Group there, and we met in Louisville, Kentucky. And we had a great time. It was Thursday through Sunday, and Saturday was the awards ceremony. But beforehand was we ate, we drank, and just networked with one another. And just a lot. It's people in the business. It's people that just love bourbon, love to drink whiskey. Yeah, but we had a great time. So 7 of the ladies from our operation went up, and we rented some rooms there, a big house there in Louisville, and we had a great time.
We got the so we did an event in June. It's kind of off topic. It was at 44 Farms. A lot of the folks that are joining today were probably a part of that one as well. And we had steaks out, and the flies at a farm, like at a ranch,
Right.
were amazing. So I just had a flashback with a couple flies that came by. But well, we need our fly swatters.
Yeah.
Right. that's got to be an element to this too. Everything we do is indoor, outdoor. I'm sure weather's something, but do y'all get bugs or wasp nests and all the other stuff you'd get in the elements?
It's flies pretty much. They love the sweetness of what we're doing, especially on the mash side. When the grains come in, we put the grains in the vessel, we add some water, and we start to cook that up, and then it goes through fermentation. But the malt, and particularly the malted barley, is really sweet, and the flies seem to like to attract to that. But
when the product's coming out of this pot still or out of any still, before it goes into barrel, are you able to taste it and know this is a winner?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what does that taste like?
Yeah, so that's, at that time it's pretty high proof, like coming off of our pot still. It's generally around 145, 147 proof. Up in Kentucky, most of the folks up there that have the column stills generally run it off at about 125, 130, 135. So it's a real strong. Real strong, yeah. Yeah, it has a pretty strong flavor at that time. But you can tell, the difference in when you make your cuts. You're looking for that sweet part of the alcohol coming off. So, and that's what we look for is, the first heads part. When you start running is called the head. So that's about the first 20% of your production coming off of your still is called the heads. Well, that you throw away. You discard that or you clean with it because the alcohol content is really high and it's not good to drink. You want to discard that, and then you start capturing the hearts part of it. And that's that center cut part that's really nice that you want to hang on to and put into your barrel.
Okay, is there a foot then as well in your analogy? Is there a leftover at the end?
There's a tail.
A tail.
There is. So you got your heads, your hearts, and your tail. You can let it run a little bit into the tail's end of it if you like. You know, that's just based on the distiller's taste buds, what they're trying to capture. But pretty much most of the tails will get discarded as well. Yeah.
So percentagely, how much is the heart?
The hearts can be anywhere from around 40 to 50%, maybe 60%. It just depends on where, that distiller makes those cuts.
Sure. So if you were running a whole batch, you would have 40 to 50% loss on just the head or the tail?
Right. Possibly could have, yeah.
Again, those of y'all been joining us for a while. We learned the same from Grant Pinkerton in cooking a brisket. So funny the comparison there. So
James, we got a couple questions if y'all want to start to answer.
Some questions.
Yeah. This might be a question for Marlene, but can you explain the difference between whiskey and bourbon? My Kentucky son-in-law said that bourbon is only from Kentucky.
Yeah. This is going to be a doozy of a question.
That's
Are you
a great
ready for
question.
This?
Yeah.
Did you used to think that?
Absolutely. No, I knew better. I know, the history behind it. Now, there's a lot of folks that I worked with in the distillery back home in Kentucky that'll tell you bourbon can only be made in Kentucky. Well, LBJ changed that in 1964. He made bourbon the native spirit of the United States. So it can be made anywhere. We make bourbon here every day. So the difference is whiskey is like your heading, your main category, and then everything falls underneath that, like your bourbon, your Irish whiskey, your Scotch, your rye whiskeys all fall underneath that main heading of whiskey, yeah.
And your favorite of those is bourbon? Is that your preference?
Bourbon, yeah. My taste palette has a tendency to lean toward the sweeter notes. Okay. The sweeter side of things.
That's a good question. The follow-up I usually hear is someone will say like Scotch has to be made in Scotland. They say there may be some truth to that for the peatiness or something about the environment, but I would pose the question back, other than just because we said so, I'd love to know why someone in Kentucky is saying that that's the case still today. It'd be fun to find out if they have a follow-up to that. It'd be interesting to know.
We have one more question
Love to hear it, yeah.
This also might be for Marlene. Sorry, James.
I want more Marlene questions. That's great. Yeah.
You're being silenced by the audience.
Right?
Yeah.
How do you clean these stills back behind you?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Are you diving in there?
Well, now, yeah, occasionally we do have to climb down inside and take a brush to the inside. But generally, once you empty that vessel, what's left from the beer, once you vapor the alcohol off, What's left is spent stillage, and that's the byproduct. So basically, all you have at that point is water and grain, and cattle love it. It's a great livestock food for livestock. It's like crack cocaine to them. I mean, you know, when the farmers, and we give it away, and the cattle really love it. And so we just take a water hose. As long as you get to it pretty quick as you're dumping that vessel, it's still kind of warm, 150, 160 degrees. You take a water hose and wash the walls down. You can clean it up pretty good.
That's pretty good. Cocaine's just like mashed to cattle.
Yeah.
I like that analogy there.
Yeah.
We have one more. Is
Yeah.
the heads and tails completely wasted, or is there a secondary use of it? Seems like a lot of waste in the batch.
Yeah, it is a waste. You know, the guys back up that have the big column stills, a lot of times they'll run the heads and tails back through that still.
Okay.
Like they'll add it to their beer well, they'll add it to that beer before it comes to the still, trying to squeeze just a little bit more alcohol out, and it offers a little bit of flavoring maybe too, you know, to that white dog coming off the stills. But it primarily is discarded.
Okay.
And then are the cows getting drunk? Or?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
all the alcohol is out at that point. We make sure that it's below, you know, the limits to, but they do, it hydrates them, it fattens them up. It's great livestock.
I would have given a completely different answer. I'm glad Marlene said that. I would have said cows have 4 stomachs and a liver to each, and they're absolutely fine with the alcohol. It's no big deal. Let's get into the tasting of these. We were taught a few things about how to find the right notes in last year's event was still, but we got some newbies on here that were not part of last year's event. I'd like to start from the beginning. When you're getting a good sip of a new Milam batch, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so I look for the characteristics of, you know, the sweet notes that you'll find a lot of times in bourbon and in whiskey. You're looking for anything, any off notes, anything that may have a bit of a funky nose to it, taste to it. And that all depends on your grains, your distillation, your water, different things that come into, and then your cuts when you make your cuts.
Well, take one of these and tell me what you're finding in this. So we mentioned batches a number of times just now. This would be 0 batch done. This is just a single barrel. Is that how that works?
It is.
So this is no mixing or blending done.
Right.
We
Yeah.
just have pure from one barrel.
Right, yes.
Okay.
Single barrel, cast strength, lightly filtered.
do you need?
Good-
What-
Sorry, I just,
Yeah.
had a,
Good
What?
deal. What? Nice.
Sure, Jim. So, cheers. Do we just shoot it?
No, I wouldn't recommend, especially for the newbies.
Yeah.
The newbies you've got. So, you know, it's like with wine. Wine's really low alcohol. You can stick your nose right up in a wine glass.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that with high-proof spirits. If you do, you'll fry those. I see.
Is that the way you do it?
You'll fry your senses, and you won't be able to smell really or taste anything. So just ease it up, smell it, and then at some point, you can stick your nose in the glass. But you want to smell and nose it several times. And there's no wrong answers. You may pick up sweet notes. You may get some floral notes. You may get some fruity notes off of it. But once you taste it, pretty much your nosing is complete at that time. You won't really pick that much more up off the nose of it.
Okay.
But yeah, this is a barrel pick that you guys did with us. It's a 5-year-old Kentucky whiskey. It's our recipe. It's our sweet mash. It's our malted rye recipe that we use here at home. It is a sweet mash, and it has 2 different yeast strains that we use.
If given the choice, would y'all continue working in Texas and in Kentucky, or will y'all one day be full Texas?
No, I think we'll keep doing what we've been doing. That's who we've been from the beginning, pretty much, of Milam and Greene, is sourcing whiskey out. We'll bring whiskey in. we'll continue to work with the guys up in Kentucky, and we'll continue to run our pot stills here in Texas.
Are there other distilleries that do it in Texas that way, that they're leveraging out of state to do it, or are most not following your model?
Not to my knowledge. There are not.
Okay.
Others. There may be a few that are doing some contract up in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times people won't tell you that. But we're very open and transparent, about how we do things. We always have been.
Sure.
And our attitude about that is to embrace a lot of different things and let people know what we're doing.
I love that.
They appreciate that honesty.
That's good. It confused me at first. The more I learn about it, the more it makes sense. I love that y'all do it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple questions about what you have today. So you don't know this about me, but my favorite is a Fireball Old Fashioned. I'd like you to explain some of these other things you have here that they may find in stores. So if you go to a Specs today, you'll see Milam and Greene on the shelves. What should they be looking for, and then what should they do with that? Is this usually done? Your other bottles, do people shoot it? Do they make cocktails? Is it slow sipped over ice usually? How do y'all like to do it?
Yeah, it just, there again, it depends on, I think it depends on the individual that purchases the bottle. Our portfolio is actually pretty small in comparison to a lot of distilleries out, but it's a very diverse portfolio. We have a rye whiskey that we finish out in a tawny port wine cask. We have our very small batch that has Kentucky whiskey and Tennessee.
That's this one here?
That's that one. We come out with that one last year. That was the first new label we had come out with in a couple of years after our expansion. But we used the tawny port barrels to help with this product, and it's just a real flavor bomb. It's at 108 proof, and people just really love it. But that's our very small batch. This one is our #1 seller. It's our triple cast. It's at 94 proof. I mean, they're great to sip on. They're great in a cocktail.
You mentioned very small batch has to do with the number of barrels that are blended into creating. Is that still the right?
Right.
Am I using the right definition?
Right.
What is triple cask?
Triple cast is 3 different aged whiskeys from 3 different states. So this has our Texas whiskey, it has our Kentucky whiskey, and then it has a little bit of Tennessee that we throw in. Yeah.
So, Chris, I'm going to go off camera for just a second. If you could show Marlene, or maybe Marlene show that bottle, the favorite one there, the most popular one. This is another thing y'all brought out, and I know we had it off camera. Sorry for that interruption. Yeah. Can I open that? Is this okay to open this
absolutely.
Up? I'm going to open this box. This is, you said this is newer.
Yeah, this is just starting to hit the shelves. This is unabridged volume 3. And this one is just starting to appear on the shelves. But volume 1 and 2 was just the bottle. We didn't have the nice box to put it in. This year we elected to put it in a box, but it's just gorgeous. The box is gorgeous. A great holiday gift. It's ready to put a bow on the top of it and give it to somebody. But the product inside is cast strength. It's at 118 proof. So the name unabridged comes from the fact that it is unedited. It's unfinished. So this comes straight out of a barrel. It's 6 different aged whiskeys that we batch together.
I was reading that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's all, you're talking about full disclosure. It's all on the label. So,
guys, the magic within Milam and Greene seems apparent that it has to do with the blending of different types and making a perfect flavor profile.
Yeah.
This one has 10-year aged Kentucky bourbon, 9-year aged different Kentucky bourbon, 6-year aged another Kentucky bourbon, et cetera, et cetera. I've heard that the aging when making bourbon in Texas isn't the same because of that weather that you mentioned earlier. You can do things faster, you can do things slower if you need to, you can control it. Is there truth to that, or is that a myth?
You can control it based on pulling samples and tasting, and then dump those barrels. But we dump everything based on taste, not so much by age, but by taste. And but yes, the heat and the climate from day to day, season to season here in Texas, will move things along a little quicker.
Okay.
Down here, absolutely.
And you've tasted this, our Barrel Select. If you had to say which of these three most closely compares to to what we selected, do any of these three come close?
I would say this one probably does.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just your review, as if you were on Yelp right now. What are your thoughts on the one we selected?
Yeah, I love your barrel pick. You guys did a great job on the barrel pick.
Y'all did too.
It's 121 proof. I didn't know the proof on it when I took my first taste of it, and I was like, "This is no way. This is 121 proof."
So we got here.
This is really nice.
We got here, and Marlene said that to me. She said, "Oh, do you have the bottle? Can we taste it on air? Can I see it?" She said, "Do we try it right before?" And so I poured one for her and gave it to her. She was drinking at the same time a taste from a triple cask, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And just think about the difference in proof. That's running from about 94 proof up to, you said 120?
121.
Yeah, 121. Most of the time, I think you're going to have a moment of that, like, that should have hit you harder.
Yeah.
Didn't at all. She started laughing about, this is really good.
Yeah.
And then she looked at it and was surprised it was that steep. I love y'all's reviews. I know Kevin Dunn's on. I'd be shocked if he's not. If Kevin Dunn's on, Kevin, you're one I want an opinion on. A few of you others, y'all know I know you like this bourbon stuff, so I want to hear what y'all think.
So Marlene, how much whiskey are you drinking a day?
Today or per day?
Marlene, per day.
Per day?
You're at a doctor,
Yeah.
and the doctor says how many drinks per day.
Yeah, my days are a little shorter now, so not as much as it used to be. But yeah, it just depends on what we've got going on. If we've got barrels out that we're dumping, like I said, we taste everything that we dump prior to. So it could be I'll leave it at a fair amount of whiskey that I drink at a day's time, right? We'll leave it at that.
We have a couple more questions. Is that okay, James? Okay,
I love
so
it. No, it's great.
do you prefer a spirit produced on column stills or pot stills? From what Blake Gore is the one who submitted this question. He's saying from what he understands, there's a big difference in taste between the two.
Yeah, wow, that's I would go with the pot still. I would go with our.
Of course, that's your answer.
Yeah, I would go with our.
They have a bit of both, right? You're doing
Yeah,
a bit of both.
we do both. But yeah, I love the pot still. To me, the pot still, the flavor there, and that has a lot to do too, with our climate here.
Okay.
In Texas, but it's just a little more bold and aggressive taste profile that it has. Yeah.
How much whiskey is distributed annually from Milam and Greene? Do you know?
Do you know the
Yeah.
answer?
A lot? Way too much?
it's again, it's a fair amount. It's a fair amount. And that amount is growing every year. We have grown in leaps and bounds. It's like this stillhouse room that we're sitting in now.
Yeah.
2 years ago didn't exist. So this was part of our expansion that we went through. So yeah, we're growing in leaps and bounds.
Perfect.
It's pretty easy to name 3 or 4 Texas distilleries. Seems like everyone's got one now in their neighborhood. Their neighborhood distillery, their neighborhood brewery. My friends that enjoy whiskey, as we purchased the barrel and went through this process, they hadn't heard of y'all yet. Are you kind of looking forward to this like groundswell that seems to be happening right now?
Yeah, we're out there. We're a very small, independent, owned setup here, and there's less than 20 of us, and that's the production team, sales, marketing, the whole gambit. So. That's the cool thing about being involved with a brand that's a craft brand is, you wear a lot of different hats. You get to do a lot of different things. I can come in, I can distill, I can run the fermenters, the mash cookers, I can bottle, I can dump barrels, I can go out to the market and I can talk to folks out in the market, do PR type stuff.
Don't sell yourself short. You can taste it, you can drink it, you can
buy it. You can.
What else? More coming up?
Thoughts on the new American single malt classification?
Yep, can't go there with you because I'm not a single malt
Oh, okay.
person.
You're kind of
so
jumping into
there you go.
Scott's
I'd
territory.
be afraid I'd get myself into trouble if I ventured into
That's
that
fair.
one. Sorry about that.
How
Yeah.
long does the distilling process take versus the barreling process? I think that's the last question we have.
Yeah, so it can be about 5 days from the time we cook our grains up to it gets to the point to where we run it through the pot stills before it goes in the barrels. About 5 to 6 days.
Yeah, if there's more questions, throw them in there. Right now, what I would say is, even if we can't talk about them here on air, I would love to funnel some of your Q&A back this direction and learn more. Yeah, so Marlene, fascinating stuff. Excellent. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
These bottles, these different types of labels, they're in your local specs. If you're like me, you walk in looking for some very specific things. Typically, that's around the word allocated. If you go look, you try to find, do they happen to carry X, Y, or Z? And if I opened my eyes a little bit further, I found out every whiskey store, every liquor store around me is carrying Milam and Greene. I just didn't know it until I knew it. So take a look, get one of their bottles, try it out. Meet with your account executive at Center, get your barrel select that we've made, and enjoy it. Let us know what your thoughts are about it. So
James,
thank you so much. You have another one?
I know it's 4 p.m. and we're wrapping
Yeah.
up, but just 1 or 2 more questions for Marlene. If y'all need to go, feel free.
Marlene's got hard stops, guys. She's got to get this thing running again.
I've got one drink left. So
Which
go ahead.
Texas whiskey is your arch enemy?
Oh.
What's that now?
Which Texas whiskey is your arch enemy?
Oh man, Jesus. Yeah.
Can't
You know,
speak.
we're competitors. We're all competitors against
Right.
one another. There's a lot of good distilleries, good distillers in this state. And we pretty much try to work hand in hand with one another. So we collaborate, with one another. We chat back and forth. I love to find out how other folks are doing things. So, everybody's taste profile is a little bit different. There's some of the products out there that I'm like, yeah, that's not quite what I would, that I would prefer. It's good, clean competition that we've got going on.
Read between the lines, it must be Balcones. Kidding.
Silence.
No.
Silence.
I made
Not
that
on
up.
there.
She never said that.
Right?
So,
last
the
question. Do you
yeah.
sell old bottles? I mean, old barrels. I'm sorry.
Oh,
We do.
the old
Yes.
barrels.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
We should have done an entire event just around barrels. The process of burning barrels is like, what, 2 different manufacturers that sell them to everybody?
Right. Pretty much. Yeah.
That'd be neat. I wish I'd gotten into that industry over IT now that I'm thinking about it. Well, thanks again. Appreciate
You're
you doing
welcome.
this.
Absolutely.
If you're sticking
You're
around,
welcome.
I'd love to visit with you further.
Okay. We'll do
So-
it. Thank you.
Guys, thank you all for being a part of our 3rd annual whiskey event. This is a lot of fun for me. It's become my favorite event of the year. We have a large amount of work to make sure we get your bottle to you. You're going to get someone to reach out to you. They're going to call you and ask you when they can get the bottle to you. 4 or 5 of you are going to say, can you ship it to me? We're going to tell you we can't. So be ready for that. It's illegal in Texas to ship whiskey. So I can't do that. Now you're going to tell me there's programs online that do it. You're correct. But it won't be this bottle that's a barrel select. It'll be their everyday bottles, and that's fine. Buy it. We want that. We also want you guys to consider us for your IT assistance, whether it's a project, something specific around Microsoft or another application, or to be your full IT department. We can do all of it. So please consider Center Technologies to be the IT partner of choice for you. And we look forward to hosting you to another Texas-made event soon. Thank you, guys. See you soon.